Good evening, everyone, and good morning to Professor Palit and Professor Sneed. So, I take an honor in introducing Dr. Palit. Professor Mahatapa Palit is Associate Professor and Chairperson of Business Management Department in Borough of Manhattan Community College. He has research interest in marketing of the earth, educational technology community colleges, as well as business management. She has several publications and research papers to her credit. Can digital stories build career identity, being one of them? A warm welcome to you, Professor Palit.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And we have Professor Rodriguez Snipes with us. He's an assistant professor and deputy chairperson of the Business Management Department in the Borough of Manhattan Community College. He's a mindfulness and entrepreneurship researcher. Professor Snipes worked in many nonprofit organizations, and he was a creator of 6 innovation labs for HP, Microsoft, and Best Buy. He has several publications and research papers to his credit. His contributions as co-founder of 1 Million Cups NYC, the New York City edition of a national entrepreneur ecosystem project, was highly appreciated. A very warm welcome to you, Professor Snipes.
Well, it's an honor to be here.
And I introduce my co-host, Ms. Sulekha Chandra. She's a founder of Gyan Paradise. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, emotional intelligence coach, corporate trainer, research scholar, co-author, and a speaker. Hello, Sulekha.
Thank you so much, Anuradha-ji, for this wonderful introduction. Well, let me take this honor and introduce Anuradha-ji. Anuradha is a psychologist, a psychotherapist, an emotional intelligence coach, and a cyber psychology expert as well. And Anuradha-ji, it is an honor to welcome you here on this platform.
Thank you so much.
And let's start this interesting discussion themed around digital learnings. So here we would like to have your views about how could learning objectives be designed in order to make sure that the business is making most of the process. So I would invite Dr. Snipes about sharing his views on this.
So anytime I'm thinking about learning objectives, I'm always considering what does it mean for the student and their ultimate goal of obtaining some kind of position in the world, right? Some kind of opportunity. Learning objectives can also be stacked on as far as different techniques of whether it's analysis or criticism, but the ultimate goal of trying to obtain something in the world really has to be what I'm looking at in that moment. So one of the ways I pull that apart is I think about, all right, when I'm considering learning objectives, let me go to the end and let me work backwards, but let me also leave space in the learning objective design so that the student can create something that they become more and more attached to as they go through the learning objective. So what that really looks like in the real world when you're talking about entrepreneurship is students oftentimes have projects that they're working on, but these projects sometimes can be a little, there's a balance between getting the student excited about something brand new and getting them enough guidance where they don't get completely lost. So it's always that fine line of the dance between business, learning objectives, and accomplishing something with the student.
Wonderful. There's a fine line between guiding them enough so that they're not lost, but giving them an opportunity at the same time to create something out of that design. Wonderfully said. So Dr. Sen, you would like to add to it?
I think after Professor Snipes, it would be difficult. Let me say something which I understand as a practitioner over the years. See, this is not, digital learning is not new. If I remember 25 years back when television came, and I will take digital learning as anything that uses technology. So we had e-choppers where the farmers learned how to actually spray pesticides. The learning objectives were very clear. So for example, women learned how to handle and vaccinate their young ones. Right? Why it was important? There was some cognitive learning, there was some practical learning, some skill building was possible, and certain levels of cognitive learning was possible, which helped them to take steps in the future. It could be about how do we actually later on use the mandis better, where we sell the produce from the farmers. That's something that we did, right? As we graduated on, and in recent times we have, of course, I'm not talking about the COVID days. COVID days has forced a lot of people to learn by technology where they may have had an option otherwise and have chosen an option otherwise. We will come to that. But in then we had technology where I think we could learn through computers, and it is, see, it was different because I cannot switch off a teacher in the classroom, but I can actually pause a video, and when I wanted to learn at my pace and at my convenience, at my time, I could go to a MOOC and pick up a course which I could learn at my pace. And because I can't tell the teacher to teach at a particular pace which suits me best, I learn iPad very differently from my son, who learns it much faster.
Much faster.
In fact, then my wife could learn a few dishes which she never knew anything about because they were not Bengali dishes. I mean, Bengali is a language quite a lot of people use in this country called India. So if there were not dishes which were local, she did not know how to do that, but she learned it. So the learning objectives were a mix of skills and cognitive knowledge, because long back we learned that learning is not only skill building, it could be purely cognitive. Right? The third part I see in a classroom is joy. I should be able to do something, or I should be able to assimilate something, or and the third part is have an emotional connect, because if it is phonetic, cognitive, and of course has effective inputs, people learn better. So there are some good things in that. We can talk about the negatives also, but learning objectives are designed in a e-learning objective as per the needs of the student. A classroom student has a very different set of needs than a mechanic who comes to fix up a Eureka Forbes water filter in my home. Both use digital learning. The doctor uses digital learning. I will not get into that. All of us use digital learning. It's not new. It's there to stay. But the rate has grown. And we often talk about COVID and associated things like somebody getting an engineering degree without going to college, or an MBA degree without going to college, which I could not have imagined 8 months back as I teach in colleges. Right? Today, I see it as a reality. There are some negatives, but the positives far outweigh. So digital learning is here to stay. Digital learning is here to grow, especially with 700 million Indians having access to today smartphones
internet
and internet. Right? So it's going to stay. That's my, and learning objectives, whether you talk of a digital class or you talk of the other medium like a physical classroom, will always look at what can my student, what can my person who is on the other end learn and do, either learn or do and do, stroke. So that is supposed to be the learning objective, endpoint gain for the student. Right?
Gain for the student.
That's my view.
True. In fact, for some studies have also shown that retention rates have also changed, because if we are changing the mode of delivery, the retention rates have also changed, and the biggest benefit has happened to employees who couldn't find time to go through certain learnings, and I think digital learning has saved a lot of time. What do you think, Dr. Palith, about this scenario? Yeah.
About retention rates?
Yes, the overall scenario that you think how digital learning has impacted retention rates, and how delivery modes have impacted.
So In my view, and I really appreciate Dr. Sen's overview of digital learning, it is absolutely true. It has been happening for the longest time, but it has accelerated and it has sort of put us in a place where now we just have no choice but to do digital learning in the time of COVID. Is it working out? I think we are still at this sort of like in the beginning phases, even though it has started 25 years ago. We have in the beginning phases of digital learning. At BMCC, we are more concerned because as so many of our students are getting into digital learning, one thing which, we're always comparing it with face-to-face learning because a lot of our students would do that originally. So right now, what I feel where we need to head is coming up with digital learning that provides a more immersive experience for our students. It provides the kind of social interaction that students typically would have had the opportunity to, they would talk to their friends, they would talk to their classmates. So this kind of social interaction, which I think is a very important part of learning, the social learning, that we need to find ways to include. And I think technology is emerging, but it'll probably take a little bit of time for it to really come into being. And hopefully in the next 2 years, we will probably have, all kinds of virtual reality learning going on and, AR and ways to learn, which will simulate the face-to-face experience that people are looking for. I have seen those certain MOOCs where the way they do it is they will teach the concepts and they will provide discussion groups for students to talk to each other, but they will also have sections where they would include student voices, like they would have students being interviewed at their college and having students express their opinion on certain topics so that folks who are in the class, they can actually identify with the speaker, and it's not just the teacher or as they call this, sage on the stage. There are also other students who they are interacting with, or at least hearing their voices. So I feel that there is like a new, a new direction we need to move into to include the social aspect.
I feel like too, to add on to that and to kind of build on this idea that we're living in this digital world, right, Mahatma? Right. Yeah. It's just like we're living in this space where it's an idea that as teachers, we can't teach the way we've always taught. Like we've got to learn new ways of weaving things together in a digital environment to actually engage the student in a different way. But it doesn't look and feel exactly like what we were doing in the classroom. So we actually have to learn new things to do if we don't want it to be just them going at a self-pace and walking through things, which is missing, I would say, at least a third of the learning is actually being engaged with people actively and recording videos live and interacting with other people, recording videos and having other people watch them and interact with each other, even if it is asynchronously. You've got to create some kind of dialogue in the space that does more than a discussion board. The discussion board is like as old as the computer is. So the fact that we're using discussion boards as the core of what a lot of what people are learning is not taking us where we need to go.
That's true. That's true. I agree with Dr. Snipes. Completely agree.
Dr. Shakira, you would like to add to it?
Yeah, sure. So typically, I would like to say yes, commendable. Along with Dr. Snipes and Dr. Palit and Dr. Sen, I would like to add that yes, along with building the communication skills, critical thinking skills, problem solving, analyzing skills, along with AI, artificial intelligence, we are looking at empowering the teaching process and the teachers, the learning and the learning assessment, looking at developing values and skill sets for life and the work, which is now going to be all in the AI era for sure. So it's a net having lifelong learning opportunities right? We're looking at addressing cross-cutting issues for sure, which is looking at promoting equitable and inclusive use of AI in education. Next point could be gender equitable, for gender equality studies. Looking at ensuring ethical and transparent, auditable use of data in education, and maybe different algorithm for mathematics. So typically at the end, I would say that yes, this could be a lot of more for monitoring and evaluation and research as well. So learning objectives actually are the first step.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I
Quite
think,
interesting, interesting insights, I must say.
it was quite insightful, wherein, I do get some few points saying that if you really have to engage a student, right? So now the professors or the teaching staff has to, unlearn a few things and then relearn, right? So the relearning part is going to be challenging for the professors. But yes, in coming 2 years, yes, we're going to see a lot of changes in which, the professors are self-empowered, but at the same time, the students are also empowered with all the digital literacy we are talking about. So,
True.
with the discussion going forward, so I'd like to ask Professor Palit that how has digital learning, there's a lot of change in digital, the way the digitalization has been happening. So, how has digital learning changed over the years, both in the case of individuals and organizations? And how has it actually impacted the world?
Mhm. So I have to say, Dr. Sen did a really wonderful, he explained it so well, starting from how it was being done 25 years ago with maybe television, and then coming to where we are now. So yes, it has impacted, it has changed over the time a lot. But I can see a lot of changes that will be going ahead. And Professor Malekar, she spoke about the fact that there will probably be more use of AI, artificial intelligence, AI, or we could also have blockchain technology being used. So I expect that as we go forward, we will probably see that there is going to be a greater, there are things like AI that will allow us to personalize learning, which we haven't been able to do quite as much. If you think of the guru shishya relationship, in the past, it would have been, this one-on-one kind of mentoring relationship that was possible, right? But now I think we might be able to go back to it, having that kind of personalized learning where we can literally understand like where are students currently at, which topics have they grasped, which ones they have not, which ones they have yet to master. And then the faculty can actually come in and, sort of focus on those topics, on those areas where students need more help. So I feel that there is a lot that is probably likely to happen going forward. What I'm also, this is at the individual level, I'm also thinking about it from an organizational perspective, because I feel that, and I'm talking, we are an educational institution, right? BMCC is one such, but there is something big that needs to change, because so far, if I looked at the professor who's currently retiring, he's been with BMCC for over 40 years. Some of his transparencies he has been using since the last 30 years, right? But the rate of change has so dramatically accelerated that I think we have no choice but for faculty to embrace that and to make learning a very integral part of what they have to do. So, and I don't mean just faculty development, professional development. Of course, these we have always had, but make learning a part of what faculty have to do. I know in organizations in the business world, this is already more advanced, and it's actually ironical that as an educational institution, we have to do so much more. And we have to give faculty either time or incentive, or hold them responsible and accountable to be able to learn new technologies, new trends, new topics related to their subject, so that they are able to help students as they go forward in their careers and in their professional world. So that's my view on how it is impacted and how it will impact.
Awesome.
Really, very nice thoughts. Very nice thoughts.
True.
I'm so like, when I hear the problems or the challenges that Dr. Patel was talking about, it strikes me to say, like, I don't think there's such a thing as, you can't have a classic set of knowledge and expect to teach that the same way over and over again anymore. And if you are doing that, you're not moving at a pace that's actually going to be helpful for the student long term. Like for example, yeah, you can teach me the foundations of what algebra is, but you've got to learn how to make it more relevant to what we're actually doing now. There's so much more to pulling knowledge together and assimilating it in various different ways, and then pulling it apart and assimilating it again. But if students never learn that process of what that does, they truly think that it's enough for me to know how to diagram a sentence. And that's just not accurate anymore. So the teacher needs to take on the responsibility of, how do I take that to the next place? And how do I do that in a digital environment? Because I feel like right now, a lot of digital environments are flat because we're still sticking to that same idea that if I just put the video up there, if I just put the transparency up there, if I just put the same question up there, that somehow that's going to be enough. And it's not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think very well said. In fact, since I do, and even yesterday I had a session with Indian Railways and later with Infosys, and I work with many of these companies, and I also teach at educational institutes as an adjunct professor. There's a lot of difference. Number one is, I think how you asked a question, how did the process change over a period of time? One of the things is, primarily, if you see in the olden days, it was asynchronous. We can go on the differences. Today, a lot of it, especially for organizations, is synchronous teaching on the net. They can go to a MOOC, they can pick up a course, they're not interested. It has to be contextualized. So they need synchronous teaching. Because though this is a virtual medium, they want to make the interactions real. So there must be synchronicity as a, if that's a word that is in the English dictionary, if not, it should be added. So maybe synchronicity, I need to ask a question, So in a classroom, I have seen half the people say there's a problem, which is true in India. I'm in a small place, my bandwidth is not working, so I have to switch off the camera. I don't know whether the person is switched off or the camera is switched off. It's a problem. I have very little control. I have very little desire to control. It doesn't matter. But in organizations, it matters for the people, because at the end of the day, it is money that they're looking for. And the bottom line would be improved, they feel, if the competencies actually are enhanced. It makes sense. So if they're going through a session on leadership, they want to see the 3 things that the fellow can do when he goes back to the workplace, which makes sense in terms of a climate where they can predict more money. Because these predictions are very clear. The causal relationships are known. It's no mystery. Less people leave, less hiring costs, better talent retained, reputation, so on and so forth. It could be a myriad of things, a lot of things. So for them, because today they actually cannot tell their officers or executives to have lunch in the common place, to bring it from home. Many of these large organizations, even in a manufacturing unit, what they do is they have virtual learning. We don't have virtual reality. That would be more useful for an assembly line worker, right? But if you get it for regular classes, it will be wonderful. But for cognitive learning, virtual reality may not be such an important part till it does come into the picture in a large scale. But what is important is if I talk to somebody, if I want to talk to somebody to understand a subject better, do I have an opportunity? Can I feel a sense of reality? And can I do it on pace? For example, Indian Oil, one of the largest organization in terms of revenue in India, I have in the last few months trained 400 odd of their very senior executives. And many of them want a session from 7 in the evening to 9, which they feel that they will be fine with, so that they don't get cluttered up with office work or a phone call from the boss. Though in the home, there are challenges, because his eldest son, who is probably pass out or just in college, may come in and say, I need this space. I need a little more bandwidth, switch off your camera. Those are realities. His wife may say, you did tell me that you will help me cook. So they need to adjust those kind of things. So there could be parallel demands which they have not factored in, right? There could be parallel demands and real demands, right? So, but it's still something many people prefer. That because I'm serious about it, let's do it at a time when I will not be badgered by calls or bothered by people demanding an audience from me immediately, right? So these are some of the challenges, and therefore it is graduating in many ways, not only the medium, the mode, but also the content, and definitely time spans and time, as I said, slots. So that's my view. But I was really thankful. I think Professor Palith brought a lot of fresh air and energy into the system on this question, and Dr. Snipes really built on it. Thank you.
Yes, that's so
Really
true. I
wonderful.
mean, yes, that's
Yeah,
wonderful. Thank you so much. It's like, yeah, education software is now being so different and adapted to student needs. For example, we can see adaptive learning technologies as we see through Khan Academy, right? Where it is custom tailored education, which is machine assisted, right? That could be one. Or you can have courses to be improvised. For example, professors and teachers may not actually always be aware of the gaps they may have in their lectures, and then sometimes it can be leaving the students confused. So as a result, the artificial intelligence digital learning platform, for example, something like a Coursera, which is a massive online course provider, is putting it in place, right? When a large number of students submit a wrong answer, the system alerts the teacher and you get a customized message, and students get the answer even before the teacher is helping them out. So that's something which is immediate feedback to understand the concept, and they remember how to do it right the second time. Similarly, with artificial intelligence tutors also, they could get a lot of help, which even the professors would be appreciative of for sure.
Absolutely.
excellent. It's really wonderful. I would like to ask a question to Dr. Snipes. Dr. Snipes, you have been doing excellent as far as the entrepreneurship spirit is concerned. You have been guiding a lot of students. I would like to understand how, latest artificial intelligence technologies and LMS systems have helped you in efficient and effective delivery of this learning to the students. Have they been able to expose themselves and their projects to more investors? And have they been able to get more visibility? In those terms, I would like to have your views.
Yeah, I think we're not there yet. I'll be honest with you. I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, at least when you're teaching at the very beginning level, there aren't a lot of tools in place, which of course begs the question of when an entrepreneur is going to come up with something to solve this problem. But as far as machine learning, and I'm gonna say machine learning a lot instead of artificial intelligence, because we're not there. Like artificial intelligence is we're like a decade away from artificial intelligence, but machine learning is there for us, right? Machine learning is there to match us with patterns, to teach us things, based on the patterns of what's going on, bring new information in, and to analyze those patterns more quickly than we can consciously understand how to do ourselves. And it's not to say that our brains aren't consciously analyzing stuff at that level, they are. So for the student, I think when you're talking about entrepreneurship and bringing them some type of information that's going to be helpful, what I would envision being very helpful for them would be for there to be a much larger machine learning apparatus that would allow students to very quickly connect to a mentor and very quickly be able to be matched with another person who can just kind of not necessarily guide them through the process of entrepreneurship. That's what the course is for, but to guide them on some of those key beginnings decisions that they need to make in entrepreneurship. So that would be a really important place to pull a big lever that would connect the student much more efficiently right now than I have to do, which is very manual, right? I go through my network of mentors. I call in probably 30 to 50 mentors every single semester to work with the students. Those 50 people are all like activated by me. They're not activated by machine learning. But if they were activated by machine learning, oh, wow. I mean, my brain would explode right now because I would literally be able to help every single student and every single entrepreneurship across the country immediately be able to take like, okay, here's my quick write-up that my student did about my business idea. Machine learning scans it. It scans the stuff that mentors have worked on before. It talks about the types of students that they've worked with, the level that the student was at. It matches those components up, and there you go. So I just came up with a really cool startup. Anyone want to go into business with me?
Awesome. I would definitely like to do business with you.
Absolutely.
No, that's the answer to your question. It's not there yet. And so we need innovations like that.
Well said. I mean, this is interesting. You said that you would like machine learning to connect a student to a mentor as quickly as possible about any project or write-up that the student, and the mentor should also come to know about the current progress of that student at that given point in time. So that makes all the difference. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Ms. Anuradha, you would like to ask something?
Yeah, I was, quite interested when Professor Snipes was doing all those things. So it's like machine learning, the patterns, and it basically they nowadays they're doing with the behavior. Like they turn to identify the behaviors, they find a pattern. So yes, analyzing the patterns for learning is something which will be very interesting, and this activating that machine learning will actually bring in a lot of insight to the student to understand what is exactly going on, and it does help the faculty to help the student in a better way because they both can understand what is going on there. So that's really very wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor Snipes.
In fact,
Again, I must compliment Professor Snipes for this one sentence that still machine learning cannot replace a human behind all that intelligence.
Absolutely.
Kaji, I have just thought that maybe it is interesting because what he said about machine learning, at the end of the day, entrepreneurship learning is often related to, not entrepreneurship learning, entrepreneurship rather is related to a very strong urge of achieving certain kinds of results in the real world, which is related to achievement orientation. And we are lucky in India that there is a gentleman called David McClelland, who founded what we know as competencies at Harvard, worked in India to enhance entrepreneurship abilities in a place called Kakinada near Hyderabad. Right? I was fortunate enough to have huge number of interactions because I worked with Competency International with Lyle Spencer and Richard Boyces later for many years, still continue to have. But what is very important is they could kindle in a large number of people in Kakinada a desire to start something new. Right? That is, could be a small bicycle shop, could be actually creating pipes, right? MS pipes, so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, they could actually segregate the variables to find that Kakinada had a higher entrepreneurship and a growth in economy compared to the neighboring areas. Today we have entrepreneurship schools all over the world, whether it is IIM Udaipur, whether it is ESADE, whether it is, you name it, you have it, almost all schools. But technology should help them to connect, as rightly said, a student to a Ratan Tata, for some examples, though Ratan Tata is not an entrepreneur, he is an industrialist and a great manager, because there is a huge difference between a Steve Jobs and a Rockefeller who takes over from his father's business. Because stable businessmen have very different mindsets than entrepreneurs, and we are not getting into the difference right now. The high need for achievement actually can be helped if they can have other entrepreneurs guiding them. And can we have the technology in the world helping millions of such, people who want to be entrepreneurs, who have a desire to connect to people who have succeeded as entrepreneurs. And that bank, if it is created, where they are willing to share some time, that time bank and the leadership bank can be a great help, because technology can connect them. And that's my view, which I wanted to share with you.
Amazing, amazing, sir. Even I would like to add that if we go back 8 months ago, we wouldn't see as many emails in our inbox about so many programs as we witness now. Those days, I remember Niti Aayog, which is a primary organization for women entrepreneurship in our country. It's a huge platform with many investors, many entrepreneurs enrolled with it. But earlier, they used to have different conferences scheduled in different cities, and one would definitely want to attend the conference, but might miss. Many a times one would miss. But now it has become so available. There is one email, there is one click, and you are there, and you get to see so many investors talking live about what confidence is required in an entrepreneur. What is investor looking for in you? And is your skin there in the game? So all those things, they have made a huge difference now. Even as a research scholar, when I had attended my university that time, I had to go and personally be there to attend the classes. But now university also had to adapt with the technology, and they collaborated beautifully with so many professors across the world. Now we get a huge variety of professors to come on board and talk with us, share share their experiences, and give a lot of learnings. That's how I think entrepreneurship and digital learning for me has changed a lot. Being an entrepreneur, I'm talking from that point of view, and being a research scholar from that point of view. Thank you so much. So we would like to have Dr. Palit, we would like to have your views. We discussed various initiatives. Would you like to talk about any particular initiatives that your organization has taken in recent times, which has changed the digital learning in a big way?
Again, I would say we haven't done enough to reach that point. We are all hoping that we will, right? But we are still using Blackboard, which may be in learning management system, which perhaps may be new in some parts of India, but in the US, Blackboard has been used, or a learning management system has been used for a while. And we are still using that, perhaps at the time now that we are not able to meet face-to-face, people are using Zoom. They're also using certain other small educational technology platforms, such as a product called Remind, for example. Remind is a way to remind students, a way to text from our emails, so that, because students, we know these days, are not looking at their emails anymore, right? They're looking at their phones. So the text messages. So, if you wanted to remind students that, look, there is class today. I have in my class, one of the big problems students tell me is that, they're sitting at home and working, and they're doing 5 classes, and everything becomes a big jumble. They don't know when they have to go to which class, when is this assignment due for which class. So Remind is a good way to, make sure that they're coming into the class. They know this assignment is, particular assignment is due. But there are also some things that our university is doing, because we are a very large city university. It's one of the largest urban universities in the US, perhaps. Maybe it's the second largest or the third largest in the United States. And when we had to face the situation where everybody was going to be working from home, we realized that there is the digital divide, as we call it, is so, it's going to impact students who are coming from, economically disadvantaged families so much more, because it's not, it's not as perhaps in another, higher income families where every student has their own laptop, the parents have their own laptops. So that is not there. And so which means that if one family member is using the laptop, the student who needs to be, is a class coming on, he doesn't have a laptop to work with. So the college, we got funds, and the college and the university has distributed thousands and thousands of laptops to students. After distributing laptops, we realized that many of them don't have good internet access. So, you can give laptops, but if they cannot connect, then that won't happen. So Wi-Fi's, mobile hotspots, this is what we have been trying to do to help our students, all our students, get the technology that they need to be able to connect. In addition to that, we, for example, for tutoring, which used to be students would come to the tutoring center and get tutored. They have now a technology called Upswing that they're using to help students do that. If they were doing advisement, they have a particular app that allows students to connect with the advisor. And counseling, the counseling services, again, we, when we're talking about educating students, we also have to help them, with, especially at this time, a lot of mental health concerns are going on. So while there are actually counselors on the other end, there is the way they're connecting with the counselors is using technology. But there is also a new app that has been created that, a person I know, an entrepreneur, a lady, she's started this called Evermind or Evermore. And it's basically trying to profile the student, and then based on the profile, guiding the student using voice recognition technology, so that the student is using the app as a voice diary, right? So the student, because again, there is not enough social interactions going on, so they're talking to the app, and there is an avatar just talking back to them, guiding them, and they're able to recognize if the student is feeling depressed, if the student is feeling happy, and based on the questions, AI driven here, based on the questions, the app asks them, or kind of guides them to say, why are you feeling this way today? But a couple of days back or last week, you were saying that XYZ was a friend of yours, and why are you feeling, upset that you're not having a, proper interaction with this person? So, and then this kind of an app is also going to the next stage, connecting with our college counselors, so that in case students are feeling depressed and they recognize that, there's a screen that comes up and says, BMCC is offering counseling services at this is the email, please connect. So these kinds of ways, digital, I would say not just the learning, digital learning is the whole student, right? In every aspect. So all the different aspects that we need to keep our students well so that they can learn, all of those things are being taken care of. I also know that Professor Snipes is considering a textbook, which is on, right?
Yeah, there's so much there, right? Like when you talk about, anytime you go into the tech world, my brain goes crazy, because all I want to do is tell people how exciting it can be to I call it paint your class as like a digital canvas using these tools that you've got, and not think about class as a teacher, right? As being like this thing that I've structured out that's never going to change for the whole semester. I'm notorious, my students in Blackboard are always like, professor, you're not telling us our entire class as we go through it. And I give them a syllabus and they know the main points, but no, because the class evolves based on the organism of the class itself. It's not something I can just lay out, especially when you're talking about entrepreneurship. You have to let the class evolve. I know what I want to teach, but I'm not going to tell you that. And so some of the digital tools that I use are like Slack for community, LivePlan, because it gives students a structured way to build a digital business plan, but more importantly, do financial projections and analysis inside the tool, because I want them to see what it means when they put a revenue together and then they project it out over a year and then all of a sudden they have $200,000, right? That like makes students get really excited, because then they realize that they could, if they just get that $15 coming in, they could make X amount of money. So let me focus on getting that $15 and not focus on getting the 200,000, right? So that's why LivePlan is great, and Lean Stack is good if you're doing like a really quick business plan on like a lean canvas. HubSpot has been great because they offer academic resources for professors so they can teach marketing and digital marketing and inbound marketing. And what does that mean in this world where every business has some digital component? And then Tableau has digital data analytics and introduction to data analytics classes. And then they get a platform that they can use for free and test different things out during the classroom. So all these tools are there for teachers. I just think it's just a question of getting everyone to start to think about their class as how can we weave these into the curriculum and into the main learning objectives and make it more about their interactions through these different processes. And then everyone can just get over their issue that they have with creating multiple profiles on multiple platforms and just say, you're already doing it. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're already on this, you're already on your iPhone, you're already on these things. So just add 5 more for my class and you'll be fine. So there you have it.
That's right.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. So there's something that I surely would like to add to, what Professor Palit was sharing with us. It's regarding the stress and the loneliness that the students are feeling right now because they are stuck at their homes, right? So I would like to share a behavioral change which was observed in Japan in 2017-18, which was known as Hakikomori. So it means that, the student or, a person who was in his 20 to 30 of age group. Work from home has been quite prevalent in Japan. So there, when the person started sitting at home, it became a behavior wherein he didn't want to go out of the home. Even food was ordered online, right? Everything was ordered. The veggies were, the groceries were ordered online, just like now in COVID times wherein we are ordering everything online. But the behavior was such that he didn't want to interact with any of the human beings. So that was a very peculiar behavior which was seen. And when the counselor started understanding what was a behavior, it is more like they're so used to this machine learning that, they didn't feel like interacting with a human being. They're like, I have, 500 friends on Facebook. I have 200 friends on Instagram. So, I keep interacting with them every day. So what's the use going out and then meeting one person when I can interact with 200 people at a time on the social platform? So that behavior has been very challenging. And then since then, there were a lot of changes and in the counseling part, which were done so that, your app that you mentioned, Professor Palit, is something which is going to be very helpful because they need to have some sort of insights of their behavior first, rather than just leaving them, okay, you're feeling so, okay, why don't you go and talk to a person? There has to be a constant, what should I say?
Sharing.
Absolutely, wherein they can come, they can talk about their stress, they know other person is understanding. There's a lot of empathy that they see that other person is understanding my condition. That is when they're going to come out of that situation. Thank you so much. And then thank you so much for the part.
This is a wonderful share.
Really quickly, because that's a really great point. I just want to add, because my research is in mindfulness. So when I do what it's called ultra brief mindfulness in the classroom, I don't know if it mediates their stress, because that wasn't something that we didn't see a lot of movement in that area. It didn't go up, But what we did see is their connection, their empathy within the classroom increased, which was really insightful. And the other thing is I push out all the time, Insight Timer and all the other things. I actually give them assignments and different activities and things that they can do, places that they can go and live meditate with other people online. So the digital world is actually bringing them a lot of resources to support what they may be feeling in terms of stress. So I just wanted to mention that's another great thing.
I think stress is one thing that actually organizations are feeling. So one of the largest organizations, Infosys in the world, actually invited, we were looking at some of the factors, and what they say is people are pretty stressed out. What do we do about it? What do we do about it? You can talk about mindfulness. It does help. We know that from a ton of research. Maybe if we try it, and I've tried it, it does really work out. But how do you actually replace five gentlemen backslapping each other, having a cup of coffee during office out, and actually talking indoors, and then coming back and collaborating with each other much better, because maintenance now understands sales and sales understands marketing, production, and that's the kind of thing that they are saying is more difficult. And we are learning many harsh truths. For example, a file that will be cleared when 5 people sit down together, now it takes much more time because we meet 5 people on a virtual platform separately many times. And these kind of things are also there. So while we have a lot of benefits in the virtual reality, there are a lot of challenges that we have, because human beings have been created as social beings. And social interactions, when it is physical, is much more easier in terms of getting along with each other. When I shake hands, it's very different than when I say, hello, how are you? Put a thumbs up through an emoji. Doesn't work the same. It doesn't work the same. There are challenges.
So you're saying that's not the same thing right there, what I just did?
It does feel good, but if you actually say something very positive and pat the student, he feels very different than just throwing up an emoji. That's my understanding. That's my belief, because these are things that are a challenge. There are many things which are going to be challenges in the coming days, and I think
is that better? That one?
Wrong deliberation in a discussion that this or that. We have to understand it has to be this and that. Television didn't go away. Mobile phones did not make watches go away. I think or televisions and radios did not make the newspaper go away. So we will still have blended, you'll have still classroom, and you'll still have digital, and they will learn to coexist. COVID has made us think in a singular manner, this or that. I think to that extent, it is not very right. Just a point of
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really, sometimes some words really stand out, and I really like this. Not this or that, but this and that. Thank you so much. Dr. Shabira, you would like to add your views on it?
Yeah, oh, this is really wonderful. I mean, the insights which are presented today, they are really wonderful because, for example, there are times when we can have a trial and error kind of a learning system, which can be less intimidating. But these are all talks of the future. We can look at how students are learning, supporting students, how we teach them. But basically these basic skills which are required, they will take time to implement. And even though the softwares and support can be available anywhere in the world, that human touch and human connection is the key. So as Dr. Sen was talking about world changers, whether it was Steve Jobs or Narayan Murthy, it's these they start off with these business students, and we just hope that we can offer them much more wider range of services.
very well said.
Very well said, Shamira ji. So taking forward, so I would like to ask a question, Dr. Palit, that we've been talking about the challenges and the changes that have been coming, right? So what are the digital skills and tools which have become very necessary in these turbulent times for the professors and for the students as well?
So one is communication tools, right? We are here talking to people in the other side of the world, and we are able to you're able to organize a virtual conference, and we're doing it on Zoom, right? We couldn't have imagined this maybe 10 years ago. So this is really important. But while we are having a really I would use the word juicy sort of conversation here, a lot of different, like very meaty, nice, interesting conversation. When we're teaching a class, I think that we as faculty, as teachers, as as folks who are leading the learning process, we have to also find ways to engage students, even using Zoom. So whether how do you engage? How is it so that it's not just a lecture, it's not one way, and that there is an interaction? So small things that we can use, and I'm sure Zoom itself, the Zoom platform is learning, and whether it's an emoji or whether it is creating breakout groups or whether it is having an option for students to respond to a poll or having chat options, all of this, anything that we can do to break that one unidirectional sort of monotonous lecturing, anything like that would be helpful. So this is an important digital tool that we have to learn. And of course, emails were always there, which we had, used in the past, but it's now becoming, another kind of an important tool. I have to say, I'm also personally, also learning myself new trends. I teach marketing, I teach entrepreneurship. And so I find that there are platforms out there which are far more elegant, if I can use the word. So simple things, and we were talking about, I remember Dr. Sen asked the question, what happens when a student has a question in the middle of a concept, like you're explaining a concept? And even if you are not there personally, but at the end of, a short, like, let's say, after 10 minutes, you've introduced a concept, to ensure that the students are engaged, they're paying attention, and that they have learned, a quick 2-point question can come up. And so then you gauge a student's learning, and the advantage is, typically, if it was in a classroom, in a face-to-face classroom, there's always that extra bright student who's sitting in the front of the class and wants to answer all the questions. So at least in this way, we are able to spread it out, and we can actually see who's that, student at the corner who doesn't speak. What is their understanding of the concept? So we can actually address more students. So these are digital tools which I feel are important for us, but we have to be creative and understand where the learning is being obstructed, or how we can improve the learning process, and then be creative and find tools that can add to that whole process. So I don't know if there is a platform that can do all that yet, but I think that's how we are dealing with it as faculty.
Thank you so much, Dr. Palit. Wonderfully said that we have to be creative. We have to understand the learning process and then create tools that can add value. And as beautifully put by Dr. Shamira, that the challenge is definitely to maintain value systems. And as beautifully, expressed by Dr. Shane, that there is a thin line between guiding enough and letting them explore. And Dr. Sen, as always, beautifully says that things are going to coexist in the future. And Anuradha, wonderfully, this example that you've given about Hikikomori. With this note, I thank all of you for this wonderful session, for your precious time. And we conclude with beautiful words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.